Okay, so just previously I had created some graphics for magical symbols. And I went ahead and also created some parchment textures. And I thought it would be fun to create some magical objects, and why not start with a scroll? So in Blender, I'm going to delete this cube. I'm going to add a mesh. I'll add a plane. Let's get a top view of this, and I'm going to tab into edit mode, zoom in a bit. Let's grab everything on Y, and I'm going to move it down. And I'm going to hit the control button to get it to snap to the world origin. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to scale this up on Y. I want to affect a curve so that the scroll can roll up, but I only want to do it once. So let's add a mirror modifier, and that's going to be under generate. And in this case, I'm going to do it on Y. All right, so that's looking okay. So the next thing is I'm going to want this to curve. So while I'm here, I can add another modifier, and that's going to be under Deform, Curve. Now, I don't have a curve in the scene to wrap it around yet, so let's add that. If we look at our curves, there's quite a few options. Now, if you don't have these, you can go to Edit, Preferences, and do a search for Curve. You should have an extra curve objects or something to that effect that you can check the box and add it in. If it's not there, it might be because you're using one of the newest versions of Blender, and it's not an option any longer. Have no fear. If we go online and do a search for Blender extra curves or something to that effect, you should be able to find this extension Blender page that has extra curve objects. And you can see right here it says this extension was part of Blender 4.1. It is now offered as is with limited support. All right, that's fine. The point is it is still an option. And if you simply grab this and drag and drop it into your 3D window, Blender will then give you the option to add this, and then you should be able to go to Preferences, search for curve, find it, check the box, and you should have these extra options. So let's go ahead and add a curve. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a spiral, because that's what a scroll does. It spirals around that central hub on either end. And we'll do an Archimedean. All right, it doesn't look like much, but we do have some options. First of all, let's give it a few turns, maybe 4 or 5 turns. Doesn't appear to have done anything because those turns are just going around and around and around. But if we adjust the radius growth and take it down to a negative number, and then take the radius down quite a bit, oh, too much, let's go up a little bit, 0.35, 0.4, something like that maybe. But we get something like this, where we've got this nice spiral that's happening. The other thing we can do is we can grab this geometry on Y and move it out and away so that it's a little bit off center. I'm going to tab back into object mode, look at this from the side view, and I'm going to rotate this on Y 90 degrees. Oh, while I'm at it though, I think I need to move this up, but if I move it this way, the origin moves, and I want the origin to stay where it is. So let's tab back into edit mode, grab this, and just roughly place it here. So there's a little bit of a gap, so that when we make the spindles that this scroll wraps around or whatever, there's a little bit of space for those things to exist. Now, if I go back into object mode, I should be able to select the spiral, and that's looking crazy. But I'm on X and need to be on Y, and maybe it's even negative Y, and that's not working at all. Well, let's take a look at this. I didn't add any geometry to this. The scroll can't roll up or down if there's no geometry. So let's do some loop cuts. Do Control R, and we'll just roll that wheel a bunch. Hit enter at some point. Enter a second time to lock it into place. 60 seems a little excessive. Maybe we'll take it down a bit. Now, if I go back into object mode, it's scrolling. Now, it's only scrolling on one end, but if we go back and look at our modifiers and think about this, well, we have the mirror happening first and then the curve. What if we do the curve first and then the mirror? There it is. Now, this is starting to look like a scroll. They're not connected though. So let me see about that. First of all, I've got the spiral that just sort of stops. Let's take a look at that spiral. Let's select just this one bit at the end of the spiral, and I'm going to extrude on Y. And we can see that the scroll is moving with it. I'm just going to grab that on Y a little bit more. So grab Y, and I'll just move those until they meet at the middle. So let's just see how this works. I'm going to tab back into object mode, and the spiral is selected, and I'm going to grab that on Y and see what happens. Well, that's not working at all. Let me see. If I go to my overlays, I don't see what I'm looking for. Let's tab into edit mode. I have a curve edit mode overlays. I'm going to check the box for normals, and we can see the direction these handles are pointing. So let's try right clicking, and we should have an option to switch direction. Okay, it's not connected anymore though. So nonetheless, let's do this. Test number 1, let's grab the spiral on Y, and it does appear to be rolling. Oh yeah, look at that. So it is definitely working. I just need to do a little manipulation to get these to meet back in the middle again. And I guess we can go about this a few different ways. I think for my part, what's probably easiest is to just grab the scroll again, tab into object mode, select all, and let's just try grabbing on Y and moving one way or the other. If I move them closer together, that seems to be the opposite of what I want. So let's Control Z, and let's grab on Y and move them out and away this way a little bit. I'm just guessing right now. Doesn't seem to be working. Let's try again. Grab on Y, move them a little further apart. Okay, that seems to be about right. I suppose the other thing I could play with is the idea of adjusting this. I could try scaling that spiral down a bit. And that, of course, push this out and away this way. But I could grab on Y and maybe bring these back together a little bit. So it's just playing around with it until you get what you want, and confirming that it does in fact behave how you would expect if you unroll it. So let's just try grabbing on Y again. Okay, and that is more or less what I want. If I put them too close together, a little bit of a problem there. So it's something to play with a little bit. But for my part, I'm going to stop here. I'm just going to go to this and shade it smooth and stop recording and just play with it and kind of mic this in a little bit. But this is more or less what I would like.